Donald Trump's presidential pardon spree has reached dangerous new heights, and legal experts are warning he may be about to step on a political landmine that could destroy his presidency. After pardoning everyone from reality TV stars to corrupt sheriffs, Trump is now considering the ultimate test of his pardon power, Ghislaine Maxwell. This isn't just about executive clemency anymore. It's about whether Trump will risk everything to protect his Epstein secrets. Trump's pardon rampage has followed a clear pattern: reward loyalty, protect allies, and silence potential threats. From January 6th rioters to convicted fraudsters, he's systematically used executive clemency to build a protection racket. But the Ghislaine Maxwell question represents uncharted territory that could backfire spectacularly. Let's examine the scope of Trump's pardon bonanza and where it's heading.
In the first months of his second term, President Trump has moved to pardon many who were considered to be loyal to him, from local Republican officials convicted of fraud to rioters at the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol.
President Trump set to fully pardon reality TV stars Todd and Julie Chrisley after they were convicted of tax evasion and bank fraud. The president calling their daughter Savannah from the Oval Office with the news.
That's a terrible thing. It's a terrible thing, but it's a great thing because your parents are going to be free and clean, and I hope we can do it by tomorrow.
The Chrisley pardons reveal Trump's casual approach to corruption, treating serious financial crimes as minor inconveniences for his celebrity supporters. But the pattern extends far beyond reality TV stars to systematic protection of corrupt law enforcement officials.
President Donald Trump has pardoned yet another loyalist who found himself in hot water with the law. We're talking about former Virginia Sheriff Scott Jenkins. He was convicted on fraud and bribery charges in March, sentenced to 10 years in prison. Well, a jury found him guilty of deputizing businessmen in exchange for cash in his county, but instead, President Trump's pardon power makes Jenkins a free man.
The Jenkins pardon demonstrates Trump's willingness to excuse blatant corruption when it serves his interests. A sheriff who sold badges for cash represents the kind of systematic corruption Trump protects through executive clemency. The scale of his pardon operation becomes clear with the January 6th mass pardon.
First, we have a list of pardons and commutations relating to events that occurred on January 6th, 2021.
And how many people is this?
I think this order will apply to approximately 1,500 people, sir.
So this is January 6th. These are the hostages. Approximately 1,500 for a pardon, full pardon.
The New York Times published new details about the pardon of a Florida businessman convicted of tax evasion.
The most revealing aspect of Trump's pardon scheme involves direct pay-to-play transactions that expose the corruption at its core.
A report from the New York Times found that the Trump administration pardoned Paul Walsack after his mother, Elizabeth Fago, attended a $1 million per-plate fundraising dinner for the president's super PAC. 3 weeks after the dinner, the president signed the pardon, getting Walsack out of an 18-month prison sentence and a $4 million restitution payment.
This represents the ultimate corruption, literally selling presidential pardons for campaign contributions. The timeline is damning. Attend a $1 million fundraiser, receive a pardon 3 weeks later that saves $4 million in restitution payments. Now comes the dangerous territory that legal experts warn could destroy Trump's presidency. The Ghislaine Maxwell question represents a political minefield that could explode everything.
Joining us now, George Conway, conservative lawyer and president of the Society for the Rule of Law. You know, I'm gonna start right at Blanche because he just spent 2 days, Deputy Attorney General spent 2 days in Tallahassee, Florida. I wanna play some sound though to kind of color the conversation. Listen to this.
I now consider you a friend and someone who I know pretty well. You are the best out there.
Now, George Blanche's friend that he's saying there is Maxwell's attorney. Explain to me and
to
Jonathan and the people at home why the Deputy Attorney General, who has bigger fish to fry, it would seem, is spending 2 days in Tallahassee, Florida by himself interviewing and talking to a convicted trafficker.
Because he's a criminal defense lawyer. okay? And he has a criminal who he represented last year and continues to represent. And what he's trying to do is act on behalf of his client, who he views to be Donald Trump and not the United States of America. And that's why this why it was so unusual, so bizarre for a deputy attorney general to interview a witness and to interview this particular witness. Because the only reason why you'd want to interview this witness, and I don't think it makes sense, but the only reason why you'd want to do that is to create some kind of a diversion from the fact that they're refusing, the Justice Department is refusing to release the Epstein documents because guess who is in them?
And so all of this is a huge distraction because they want to pretend that they're turning over every stone and looking under every rock. But for the public, there's a huge amount of information that could be disclosed right now by the government, and they're not doing it.
President Trump was asked about pardoning Maxwell. He said, I'm allowed to do it, but it's something I have not thought about. We asked Teresa Helm, who's one of the survivors of Epstein, about that just a bit ago, an hour ago now.
Her presence and her approach to me was so meticulously calculated. Her intention behind all of this, it was all to fool me and believe that I was in as I said, a safe and healthy environment, when actually she was setting me up to then go into tragedy.
So, George, a lot of people are talking about a pardon. Do you think that we're going to see some kind of pardon or clemency here? Is that why Todd Blanche spent 2 days talking to this woman?
It's the only reason I could think of why they would be doing this is to trot something out that she says that somehow makes him either not the subject or exonerates him in some fashion. And that's the only reason why you could think of doing it. But it's absolutely, positively insane. And we know Donald Trump is not afraid to grant pardons to people he thinks helped him in some way, particularly in the testimonial way. But let's stop there for a minute. And Andrew can't play this game. Okay, we're going to play a little quiz game here for the two journalists here who know everything.
And non-lawyers.
All right, non-lawyers. All right, what did Roger Stone and Manafort get charged with? And what were they found guilty of?
I mean, that's like a decade ago. I can't even remember. Was it
see, that's why we do, right? It's hard. You will always remember what Ghislaine Maxwell was convicted of. That's the point. And it's very simple. And it's also very simple too. It's like, it's worse than just this abstract, this went on for years. This was 1,000 victims. Two of the women they were girls when they were molested. Two of the victims who testified, or two of the four who testified at trial, were 14-year-old girls when Epstein had first had sex with them. And Ghislaine Maxwell was right there, telling them what to do, how to do it, taking their passports away so they couldn't get off Epstein Island. This is not going to work for Donald Trump. Okay, he does this. He's pushing a big bomb to blow himself up. But, he's thoroughly capable of doing it. He's a moral maggot who has absolutely no capacity for shame or empathy or remorse. All he cares about is what he thinks will get him to the next day.
George Conway's analysis exposes the fundamental difference between Trump's previous pardons and the Maxwell situation. While Americans might overlook pardons for financial crimes or even January 6th rioters, pardoning someone who facilitated child sex trafficking crosses a line that could trigger political catastrophe. The Deputy Attorney General's unusual 2-day visit to interview Maxwell reveals the administration's desperation to find justification for a potential pardon. As Conway explains, this isn't normal Justice Department procedure. It's Trump's personal attorney acting on behalf of his client, rather than the United States. The survivor testimony provides devastating context for why a Maxwell pardon would be political suicide. Teresa Helm's description of calculated manipulation and abuse by Maxwell makes clear that any presidential clemency would be seen as betraying child victims to protect Trump's interests. Conway's comparison between Maxwell's crimes and previous Trump pardons highlights why this case is different. People might forget the details of financial fraud or political corruption, But they'll never forget that Ghislaine Maxwell facilitated the trafficking and abuse of 14-year-old girls. The specificity of Maxwell's crimes, telling victims what to do, taking their passports, trapping them on Epstein Island, creates vivid imagery that makes presidential clemency impossible to defend. These aren't abstract financial crimes, but concrete acts of violence against children. The Justice Department's refusal to release Epstein documents while simultaneously considering Maxwell clemency exposes the administration's true priorities. They're willing to interview traffickers and consider pardons while hiding evidence that might implicate powerful figures.
Trump's pardon spree has followed a clear escalation from political allies to corrupt officials to reality TV stars to million-dollar donors. Each step normalized greater corruption while testing public tolerance for presidential clemency abuse. But the Ghislaine Maxwell question represents a bridge too far that could destroy everything Trump has built. Unlike financial fraud or political corruption, her crimes involve the systematic abuse of children in ways that create permanent political liability. The Deputy Attorney General's interview mission reveals the administration's awareness of this danger, while simultaneously showing their willingness to risk everything to protect Trump's Epstein secrets. They're literally weighing pardoning a child trafficker to prevent disclosure of what she might reveal about Trump's involvement in trafficking networks. Conway's warning that Trump is pushing a big bomb to blow himself up captures the political reality perfectly. A Maxwell pardon would create permanent association between Trump and child trafficking that no amount of political spin could overcome. The survivor testimonies make clear that any Maxwell clemency would be seen as the ultimate betrayal of justice for political protection. Americans who might overlook financial corruption won't forgive presidential pardons that prioritize trafficker protection over child victim justice. Trump's pardon addiction has created a political trap where his need to protect Epstein's secrets conflicts with basic political survival. The Maxwell question tests whether his compulsion to avoid accountability will override even basic political calculation. For American democracy, the Maxwell pardon question represents the ultimate test of whether presidential power has any moral limits. If presidents can pardon child traffickers to protect personal secrets, executive clemency becomes a tool for covering up any crime. The political calculation is stark. Maintain Epstein's secret protection through Maxwell clemency and face political annihilation, or refuse the pardon and risk whatever Maxwell might reveal about Trump's involvement in trafficking networks. Conway's assessment of Trump as a moral maggot who has absolutely no capacity for shame or empathy or remorse suggests he might choose the pardon despite the political catastrophe it would create. His inability to think beyond immediate self-interest could lead him to step on the very landmine that destroys his presidency. The question isn't whether Trump will consider a Maxwell pardon. The Justice Department interviews suggest he already is. The question is whether his political survival instincts will override his need to protect Epstein's secrets, or whether his compulsive corruption will finally consume everything. Do you think Trump is seriously considering a Ghislaine Maxwell pardon, or is the Justice Department interview just political theater? Would pardoning someone who trafficked 14-year-old girls be the final straw that turns even Republican voters against Trump? And what do you make of George Conway's warning that this could be the big bomb that destroys Trump's presidency? Is he right about the political consequences? Share your thoughts on whether Trump's pardon addiction has finally led him to a decision that could end his political career. This is exactly the kind of analysis that exposes how presidential power can be weaponized to protect the worst crimes when accountability matters most. Hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss our coverage of the decisions that define American democracy. Your engagement helps us continue tracking the abuse of power that threatens justice for the most vulnerable victim.